The champagne cork hit the ceiling of Marcus's corner office with a hollow pop that made my stomach clench. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Chicago skyline glittered with indifference as my fiancé celebrated the promotion that would destroy our wedding. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Senior VP of Global Expansion, he breathed, staring at the offer letter like it was scripture. Emma, do you understand what this means? I understood perfectly. It meant our October wedding was impossible. It meant 6 months in Singapore starting next week. It meant I'd spent the last year planning a ceremony for a groom who wouldn't show. Marcus, I said carefully, watching him pour champagne into crystal flutes I'd given him for his last promotion. We sent the invitations yesterday. 200 guests. My dress arrives next Tuesday. He turned to me then, his eyes bright with ambition and utterly blind to what he was asking. We'll postpone. Everyone will understand. This is Thornhill Global, Emma. This is everything we've worked toward. Everything he'd worked toward, I thought, but didn't say. Not yet. The deposit on the venue is non-refundable, I said instead, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. $50,000. Marcus waved this away like swatting a fly. The signing bonus more than covers it. Emma, we're talking about a path to C-suite before I'm 40. You should be celebrating with me. I looked at the man I'd agreed to marry 2 years ago. The man who'd proposed on a beach in Santorini with a ring that cost more than my car. The man who'd promised me forever while already planning his escape routes. When do you leave? I asked. Thursday. He was already turning back to his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. I need to wrap up the Morrison account and brief my replacement. You'll handle the wedding cancellations, right? You're so much better at that stuff than me. That stuff. He meant dismantling our future with phone calls and apology emails. I picked up my purse, a Prada bag Marcus had bought me for my birthday, back when he still noticed things like birthdays. I need some air. Sure, babe. He didn't look up. Oh, and can you pick up my dry cleaning? I'll need the Armani suits for Singapore. The elevator ride down from the 42nd floor took exactly 90 seconds. I counted every one, my reflection in the polished steel doors showing a woman I barely recognized anymore. When had I become someone who picked up dry cleaning while her fiancé picked apart their wedding plans? My phone buzzed as I stepped onto Michigan Avenue. A text from my best friend Rachel. Emergency lunch? I have news, I typed back. You have no idea how much I need this right now. Rachel was already at our usual spot when I arrived. A corner booth at Bella Vista with a bottle of Pinot Grigio breathing on the table. One look at my face and she poured. He took it, I said, not bothering with preamble. The Singapore position. Rachel wasn't asking. She'd warned me this was coming 6 months ago when Marcus first mentioned it. I'd defended him then, insisted he'd never jeopardize our wedding. Thursday. I took a long drink. He leaves Thursday and expects me to cancel everything like I'm his personal assistant. Rachel's expression shifted from sympathy to something harder. Emma, I need to tell you something. I was going to wait until after your wedding, but obviously that's not happening now. I looked up at her sharp tone. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Thornhill Global isn't just offering him a promotion, Rachel said carefully. She worked in corporate intelligence, had access to information most people never saw. They're grooming him for a specific role. The VP position Marcus is replacing? Guy named Thomas Chen. He got pushed out after his wife filed for divorce and sued the company for interfering in their marriage. My wine glass paused halfway to my lips. What? Thornhill has a pattern, Rachel continued, pulling out her tablet. They identify rising stars in their 30s, preferably engaged or newly married. Then they dangle these international positions that require total commitment, impossible hours, constant travel. The marriages collapse under the pressure. The executives become married to the company instead. She showed me her screen. A spreadsheet of names, dates, divorce filings. 15 executives over the past decade, all following the same trajectory. all starting with a promotion that required choosing between career and spouse. Marcus doesn't know this, I said, but even as I spoke, doubt crept in. Did he? Had he chosen this deliberately? Maybe not consciously, Rachel allowed. But Emma, you need to understand something. If you postpone this wedding and wait for him to come back from Singapore, there will always be another assignment. Another emergency. Another reason why now isn't the right time. I thought about the past 2 years. The missed dinners. The canceled weekends. The constant refrain of just this one project, and after this deal closes. I'd told myself I was being supportive, understanding the demands of his career. When had I stopped having demands of my own? I got offered a job, I said suddenly, the words escaping before I'd fully processed them. Last week. I haven't told Marcus yet. Rachel leaned forward. Where? Kincaid and Associates. I watched her eyes widen. Head of their new digital innovation division. It's everything I've wanted, Rachel. Complete creative control, twice my current salary, equity stake. Kincaid is Thornhill's biggest competitor, Rachel said slowly. I know. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken implications settling between us. What are you going to do? Rachel asked finally. I thought about Marcus in his corner office, already mentally in Singapore. About the wedding invitations sitting in 200 mailboxes. About the woman in the elevator mirror who'd forgotten how to want things for herself. I'm going to make a phone call, I said, reaching for my phone. The number for Kincaid's executive recruiter was still in my recent calls. She answered on the second ring. Ms. Chen, what a pleasant surprise. Have you made a decision about our offer? I have, I said, watching Rachel's expression shift to something between shock and admiration. When would you need me to start? How does Monday sound? I thought about Marcus's Thursday departure. About the weekend I'd planned to spend crying and canceling. About the year I'd spent molding myself around someone else's ambitions. Monday is perfect, I said. I accept. After I hung up, Rachel refilled our glasses. You're really doing this? I'm really doing this? The words felt like jumping off a cliff, terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Marcus is going to lose his mind when he finds out you're working for Kincaid. Marcus is going to be in Singapore, I corrected. He made his choice. I'm making mine. I didn't go back to Marcus's office that afternoon. Instead, I went home to the Lincoln Park condo we'd shared for the past year, the space that had never quite felt like mine despite my name being on the lease. Everything about it screamed Marcus's taste. The minimalist furniture, the abstract art, the color palette of grays and blacks and nothing warm. I stood in the bedroom doorway, looking at the wedding dress hanging in its protective bag. Vera Wang, custom fitted, costing more than my first car. I'd tried it on a dozen times, each fitting an exercise in pretending I was becoming someone Marcus would finally put first. My phone rang. Marcus. Hey babe, where are you? I thought you were picking up my dry cleaning. I'm at home, I said, my voice steady. We need to talk. Can it wait? I'm drowning here. The Morrison transition is a nightmare and I took the job at Kincaid. Silence. Long enough that I checked to see if the call had dropped. You did what? His voice had gone flat, dangerous. I accepted the position at Kincaid and Associates. I start Monday. Emma, we talked about this. Kincaid is Thornhill's primary competitor. There would be massive conflict of interest issues. We talked about it, I corrected, when you told me not to take it. We didn't discuss it like partners making a mutual decision. You told me what to do, and I was supposed to fall in line. This is different. This is my career, and what about mine? The anger I'd been suppressing for months bubbled up. What about the fact that I've been languishing at Davidson Marketing for 4 years, turning down opportunities because they might interfere with your networking events and client dinners? I never asked you to do that. You didn't have to ask. You just expected it. The same way you expect me to cancel our wedding while you fly off to build your empire. Another pause. When Marcus spoke again, his voice had shifted to the tone he used in negotiations. Calm, calculated, designed to make the other person feel unreasonable. Emma, I understand you're upset about postponing the wedding, but making rash career decisions out of spite isn't going to help anything. Spite. He thought this was spite. I'm making this decision because Kincaid offered me everything I've wanted professionally, I said. Creative control, real responsibility, a chance to build something instead of just supporting someone else's vision. At our competitors, Marcus said. Jesus, Emma, do you have any idea how this looks? How it looks? I laughed, sharp and bitter. You're moving to Singapore in 3 days and you're worried about how my job looks? This is my career we're talking about. My reputation. And what about mine? Or does that not matter as long as it doesn't interfere with yours? I heard him take a breath. Could picture him pinching the bridge of his nose the way he did when dealing with difficult clients. Look, he said finally, I don't have time for this right now. Can we talk tonight? After I finish these briefings? You mean after you finish prioritizing everything else above us? Emma, go to Singapore, Marcus. Build your empire. But I'm building mine too, and I'm not asking your permission anymore. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. In 2 minutes, I'd blown up what remained of our relationship and committed to a path that would make Marcus's life significantly more complicated. Part of me wanted to call him back, apologize, backtrack. The part of me that had spent 2 years being accommodating and understanding and endlessly patient. But there was another part. Smaller but growing stronger. That felt something like relief. I called the wedding venue first. The event coordinator, a woman named Patricia who'd been almost as invested in the planning as I was, answered immediately. Emma, I hope you're calling about the final menu selection. I need to cancel, I said, the words coming easier than expected. The wedding is off, silence. Then gently, oh honey, I'm so sorry. Are you sure? Sometimes couples just need a little time, I'm sure. He's moving to Singapore on Thursday. I'm starting a new job on Monday. We're going in different directions. The deposit is non-refundable, Patricia said apologetically. I know, but maybe we can work something out. I know you have a wait list. Actually, Patricia said slowly, there is a couple who've been desperate for an October date. Their original venue had a fire. If you'd be willing to let them take over your contract, I could refund everything except a small processing fee. That would be incredible. Let me make some calls. And Emma? I know this probably doesn't help right now, but I've been doing this for 20 years. The weddings that get called off? They're usually the relationships that would have ended in divorce anyway. Better to know now than after the vows. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of the condo, processing what I'd just done. In less than 3 hours, I'd accepted a job at my fiancé's competitor's company and canceled our wedding. The woman I'd been this morning wouldn't have recognized the woman I was becoming. My phone buzzed with a message from Rachel. Are you okay? I typed back, I will be. Then, because I couldn't face the condo's sterile emptiness any longer, I grabbed my laptop and headed to the coffee shop 3 blocks away. The place Marcus always said was too crowded and too loud, which was exactly why I loved it. I ordered a cappuccino and settled into a corner table, opening my email. The formal offer letter from Kincaid sat in my inbox, waiting to be signed. I'd read it a dozen times over the past week, each time feeling the pull of possibility war with the weight of Marcus's disapproval. The position was exactly what I'd been working toward for years. Head of Digital Innovation, reporting directly to the COO. A team of 15, 6-figure salary, and the kind of creative freedom I'd been craving since graduate school. At Davidson, I'd been treading water, implementing other people's visions, constrained by office politics and limited budgets. At Kincaid, I would build something from scratch. My phone rang again. Marcus for the 3rd time in an hour. I declined the call and sent a text. Busy. Talk tonight. His response came immediately. We need to discuss this now. This is serious. So is my career, I typed back. Welcome to what that feels like. I turned off my phone and opened my laptop, pulling up the research I'd been compiling on Kincaid's current digital initiatives. If I was doing this, I was doing it right. No half measures, no looking back. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of planning and preparation. I mapped out my first 90 days, identified potential team members, sketched strategic initiatives. The work was energizing in a way nothing at Davidson had been in years. Around 6, someone cleared their throat above my table. I looked up to find a woman in her 50s, impeccably dressed in a navy suit that screamed executive presence. "Emma Chen?" she asked. "I thought that was you. I'm Victoria Kincaid." I scrambled to stand, nearly knocking over my long cold cappuccino. Victoria Kincaid, CEO and founder of Kincaid and Associates, the woman whose company I'd just agreed to join. "Ms. Kincaid, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize—" She waved away my flustered apology, gesturing to the empty chair across from me. "May I?" "Of course," she settled in, her sharp eyes taking in my laptop screen before meeting my gaze. "Miranda told me you accepted our offer this afternoon. I wanted to personally welcome you to the team. Thank you. I'm excited about the opportunity. Are you?" Victoria asked, her tone gentle but probing. "Because from what Miranda mentioned, you've had some personal complications arise rather suddenly." I felt my cheeks flush. "My fiancé and our priorities have diverged. He works at Thornhill Global, doesn't he? Marcus Reeves. Just accepted their Singapore position." My surprise must have shown on my face because Victoria smiled. "I make it my business to know who's who in our industry," she said. "And I make it especially my business to know about the people I hire. Which is why I'm here, Emma. I need to know if you're joining Kincaid because you want this position, or because you're angry at Marcus." The directness of her question left me momentarily speechless. "I understand if it's both," Victoria continued, "but I need to know that when the anger fades, and it will, you'll still want to be here. Because this position is too important to fill with someone who's using it as a statement to their ex." I thought about my answer carefully. This woman had built an empire through strategic thinking and brutal honesty. She deserved the same from me. 2 weeks ago, Marcus told me about the Singapore offer, I said finally. He asked what I thought, and I told him it would mean postponing our wedding. He said he understood, that he'd think about it. I met Victoria's gaze. He called me this morning to tell me he'd already accepted. The decision was made. My input was theater. Victoria nodded slowly. "I've spent 2 years supporting Marcus's career," I continued. Turning down opportunities, rearranging my schedule, playing the role of the supportive partner. And somewhere in that process, I forgot that I had ambitions too. Your offer didn't just remind me, it excited me in a way nothing has in years. "But the timing is suspicious," Victoria said. "The timing is perfect," I corrected. "Because for the first time in 2 years, I'm making a decision based on what I want, not on what works best for Marcus's schedule." Victoria studied me for a long moment. Then she pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. "That's my personal cell number," she said. "You start Monday as agreed. But I want you to spend this weekend really thinking about what you want from this position and from your career. Because once you walk through our doors, you're not just Emma Chen, digital marketing expert. You're Emma Chen, the woman who left Thornhill's rising star for his competitor." "I can handle that," I said. "Can you?" Victoria leaned forward. "Because Thornhill plays dirty, Emma. They're going to see you as a threat, as potential corporate espionage. Marcus is going to be under pressure to prove you're not feeding you information. Your professional reputation is going to be questioned at every turn." "I know," I said, even though I was only beginning to understand the implications. "Good." Victoria stood, extending her hand. "Then welcome to Kincaid, Ms. Chen. I think you're going to fit in perfectly." After she left, I sat in the coffee shop as the sky darkened and the evening crowd filtered in. Victoria's warning echoed in my mind. I'd thought I was making a bold choice about my career. I hadn't fully considered that I was also making myself a target. My phone, still off, weighed heavy in my bag. Marcus had probably called a dozen more times. His texts would be progressing from irritated to angry to worried. Part of me wanted to turn it on, to explain, to smooth things over the way I always did. Instead, I opened a new document on my laptop and started writing. Not a plan for Kincaid, but a list of everything I'd compromised over the past 2 years. The job opportunities I'd turned down. The friendships I'd neglected because they didn't fit Marcus's social circle. The hobbies I'd abandoned because they took time away from being available for his needs. The list was longer than I expected. By the time I finished, the coffee shop was closing. I walked back to the condo in the dark, the October air sharp with the promise of winter. The living room lights were on, Marcus's Mercedes parked in its reserved spot. He was home early, which meant this conversation was going to happen tonight. He was sitting on the couch when I walked in, still in his suit, but with his tie loosened and a tumbler of scotch in his hand. The good scotch, the 25-year-old Macallan he saved for celebrations or catastrophes. "Your phone was off," he said without preamble. I needed to think. You needed to think. He laughed, harsh and bitter. "You just blew up our life and you needed to think." I set my bag down carefully, buying myself a moment. I blew up our life? I'm not the one leaving for Singapore in 3 days. That's different. It's not different, I interrupted. That's the problem, Marcus. It's never different when it's your career. But the moment I make a choice for mine, suddenly it's a crisis. He stood, pacing to the windows. In the reflection, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched and released. "Kincaid and Associates," he said finally. "Of all the companies in Chicago, you chose our primary competitor." I chose the job that offered me what I wanted. What you wanted? He spun to face me. "Emma, do you have any idea what this looks like? What people are going to say? That I postponed our wedding and you immediately defected to the competition. They're going to think I leaked information. That you're some kind of corporate spy. Then maybe you should have thought about how your choices would affect me before you made them. This isn't the same thing." "Why not?" I moved closer, tired of shouting across the room. "Why is your career sacrosanct but mine is just collateral damage?" "Because I've been building this for 10 years. His voice cracked slightly. "This promotion is everything I've worked for. And you're jeopardizing it because you're angry I postponed a wedding." "I'm not jeopardizing anything," I said, my voice steady despite the anger rising in my chest. "I'm taking a job. You're the one making it about you." Marcus set down his glass with enough force to make the scotch slosh. "Thornhill is going to see this as hostile. They're going to think you took the job to spy on me, to gain access to our strategies through pillow talk." "We won't be having pillow talk," I said quietly. "I'm moving out." The words surprised me as much as they surprised him. I hadn't consciously planned to say them, but the moment they left my mouth, I knew they were true. "What?" "This isn't working, Marcus. It hasn't been working for a while. We just kept pretending because the wedding was coming and it was easier than facing it." "So you're just giving up?" he asked. 2 years together and you're walking away because I got promoted?" "I'm walking away because you got promoted without considering what it would cost us. Because you've been getting promoted for 2 years and every time it's cost us a little bit more. And because somewhere along the way, I stopped being your partner and started being your support staff." Marcus sank back onto the couch, his face pale. "I never thought of you that way. Didn't you?" I sat across from him, creating distance. "When was the last time you asked about my work? Not as small talk, but actually engaged with what I do?" He opened his mouth, closed it. "When was the last time you rearranged your schedule for me?" I continued. "Or turned down a networking event because we had plans? Or chose me over your career? That's not fair, isn't it?" I felt surprisingly calm, like I was watching this conversation from outside my body. "You asked me to pick up your dry cleaning this morning, Marcus. While you were celebrating the promotion that would cancel our wedding, you asked me to pick up your dry cleaning." He flinched. "I'll move out this weekend," I said. "You'll be in Singapore anyway. We can figure out the lease and everything else through lawyers." "Emma, wait. Can we talk about this? Really talk?" "We are talking," I said gently. "For the first time in months, maybe years, we're actually talking." "I love you," he said, and I heard the desperation in his voice. "I know I've been distracted with work, but I do love you." "I know you do," I said and meant it. But Marcus, you love your career more. And that's okay. It's what you've always wanted. I just can't be the person who comes second anymore. We sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, the city hummed with its usual nighttime energy. Inside, our relationship was ending with less drama than I'd expected. Maybe because we'd been ending for a while now, and this was just making it official. What do we tell people? Marcus asked finally. The truth. That we wanted different things. That the timing didn't work out. And Kincaid? Is my decision. My career. Not a chess move in whatever game Thornhill thinks we're playing. He nodded slowly, accepting it even if he didn't like it. I should get back to the office. There's still so much to wrap up before Thursday. Of course. Even now, even in the middle of our breakup, work came first. After he left, I sat in the silent condo and cried. Not because I regretted my choices, but because endings are sad even when they're necessary. Because I'd loved Marcus once, before ambition consumed him and accommodation consumed me. Because I was angry and relieved and terrified all at once. My phone, finally turned back on, buzzed with messages. Rachel asking if I was okay. My mother wanting to know about final wedding RSVPs. 3 colleagues from Davidson who'd heard I was leaving and wanted details, and 1 message from an unknown number. Welcome to Kincaid. Looking forward to working with you? James Thornton. Cooey stared at that message, at the name of the man who would be my direct supervisor. At the future that was rushing toward me faster than I'd anticipated. Tomorrow I would start packing. This weekend I would find a new apartment. Monday I would walk into Kincaid and Associates and begin building the career I'd been dreaming about. But tonight, I let myself mourn what I was leaving behind. Not just Marcus, but the version of myself who'd thought love meant sacrifice. Who'd believed that supporting someone else's dreams was the same as having dreams of your own? That Emma was gone, dissolved in champagne and broken promises and the sharp clarity of realizing she deserved better. The new Emma, the one taking shape in the space where the old one used to be, was still figuring out who she wanted to become, but at least now she had the freedom to find out. Monday morning arrived. With the weight of every choice I'd made in the past 4 days, I stood outside the glass tower housing Kincaid and Associates, my reflection staring back at me from the polished facade. The woman looking back wore a charcoal suit I'd bought specifically for this moment. Her hair pulled into a sleek ponytail that Marcus had always said was too severe for my face. Perfect. The lobby was all marble and chrome, a deliberate contrast to Thornhill's warmer wood tones. Everything about Kincaid screamed precision and modernity. The security guard who checked my ID smiled warmly, a genuine expression that caught me off guard after years of Thornhill's corporate formality filtering through Marcus's descriptions. Ms. Chen, welcome. Miranda Chen from HR is waiting for you on the 15th floor. The elevator ride up gave me 60 seconds to second-guess everything. I'd spent the weekend moving my belongings into a furnished sublet in River North, fielding calls from confused wedding guests, and researching everything I could find about Kincaid's digital infrastructure. Marcus had left for Singapore Friday evening without saying goodbye. Just a text that read, "Safe travels to you too." I guess. The passive aggression was almost comforting in its familiarity. Miranda met me as the elevator doors opened, her handshake firm and her smile professional. She was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with an energy that suggested she'd already been at work for hours. Emma, wonderful to finally meet you in person. How was your weekend? Eventful, I said, which was the understatement of the year. She led me through an open floor plan that buzzed with purposeful activity. Unlike Thornhill's hierarchy of corner offices and closed doors, Kincaid operated in a space that felt collaborative and transparent. People worked at standing desks, clustered in small groups around whiteboards, or took calls while walking the perimeter. We have a different philosophy here, Miranda said, noting my observation. Victoria believes innovation happens through collision, not isolation. Your office is technically that corner space, but most department heads spend more time out here with their teams. My office, when we reached it, was glass-walled and modest, with a view of the city and enough space for a desk, Small conference table and nothing else. The minimalism was intentional, I realized. No place to hide, no hierarchy to reinforce. Victoria wants to see you at 10, Miranda said, checking her tablet. That gives you 90 minutes to settle in, review your team roster, and prepare for the gauntlet. The gauntlet? Miranda's smile turned sympathetic. Your team, 15 brilliant, opinionated people who've been operating without a director for 3 months. They're going to test you. After she left, I stood at my desk and looked out at the city. Somewhere across town, Thornhill Global's offices held people who knew my name for all the wrong reasons. Marcus's colleagues who would hear about my hiring and draw their own conclusions. HR representatives who would flag me as a potential security risk. Victoria had warned me this wouldn't be easy. She hadn't mentioned it would start before I'd even unpacked my laptop. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. First day. How's enemy territory? I typed back, ask me again at lunch. At exactly 10 o'clock, I made my way to Victoria's office on the 20th floor. Her assistant waved me in without ceremony. Victoria sat behind a desk that managed to be both imposing and inviting, reviewing something on her tablet. She looked up as I entered, gesturing to the chair across from her. How's the first 90 minutes? She asked. Overwhelming in the best way. Good. She set down the tablet. I'm going to be direct because that's how we operate here. Thornhill Global called our general counsel this morning. They want assurance that you won't have access to any proprietary information that could be considered competitive intelligence. My stomach dropped. Already? They're covering their bases. Marcus left for Singapore 2 days ago, and within hours of his departure, his fiancé starts at their primary competitor. From their perspective, it looks orchestrated. It wasn't... I know, Victoria interrupted. But perception matters in our industry, which is why I'm implementing some unusual protocols. For the next 6 months, you'll report directly to me, not James Thornton. All your communications will be logged and reviewable. You won't attend any meetings discussing Thornhill-specific competitive strategies. I felt my face flush. You're quarantining me. I'm protecting you, Victoria corrected. And protecting this company. Because if Thornhill decides to pursue legal action claiming trade secret violations, I need an airtight paper trail showing you had no access to anything remotely questionable. What about my team? How do I lead effectively under those constraints? Carefully. Victoria leaned back in her chair. Emma, I hired you because you're brilliant at digital innovation, not because of who you were engaged to or where he works. But the reality is that his company sees you as a threat. We need to prove them wrong while you prove yourself right. And if I can't do both, then we'll deal with it. But I think you can. She pulled up something on her screen, then turned it to face me. This came through over the weekend. A digital proposal from your team that's been sitting in committee for 2 months. Read it and tell me what you think. I scanned the document, a comprehensive strategy for integrating AI into client campaign management. It was ambitious, innovative, and completely unfocused. It's trying to do everything at once, I said after a moment. They're proposing a system that handles creative, analytics, and client communications simultaneously. But the infrastructure requirements would be massive, and the implementation timeline is unrealistic. That's what I thought, Victoria said. Your first assignment, fix it. Break it into phases. Make it achievable. Show me and show them that you can translate vision into execution. As I left her office, I realized the gauntlet Miranda had mentioned wasn't just my team. It was everything. Every decision would be scrutinized, every success questioned, every failure magnified. I'd thought accepting this job was the bold move. I was only beginning to understand that the bold move was just the beginning. My team meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock. I spent the intervening hours reviewing personnel files and previous project documentation. 15 people, ages ranging from 24 to 53, backgrounds spanning computer science, design, data analytics, and strategic communications. They'd been operating as a democracy in the absence of leadership, which meant I was about to walk into a room of people who'd gotten comfortable without oversight. At 1:55, I gathered my notes and headed to the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see them already assembled. their body language ranging from curious to skeptical to openly hostile. Here we go. I walked in and closed the door, the click of the latch somehow final. 15 pairs of eyes tracked my movement to the head of the table. "I'm Emma Chen," I said, staying standing while they sat. "I know you've been operating independently for 3 months, and I know some of you are wondering why Kincaid brought in an outsider instead of promoting from within." A woman in her 30s with purple-streaked hair leaned back in her chair. "That's exactly what I'm wondering. Fair question. I'm here because Victoria believes this division needs someone who can bridge creative innovation with strategic execution. You're all brilliant at ideas. My job is to help you make those ideas real. By implementing bureaucracy, this from a younger man, maybe 26, arms crossed defensively. We've been pitching directly to clients, iterating fast. Now we're going to have layers of approval? You've been pitching ideas that never get implemented, I corrected, pulling up the AI integration proposal on the screen. This is brilliant work. It's also completely unrealistic in its current form. Who worked on this? 4 hands went up, including purple hair woman and defensive young man. Walk me through your vision, I said. Not the technical specs. The actual problem you're trying to solve. The next hour unfolded like a masterclass in managing brilliant chaos. Each person had pieces of genius buried in layers of complexity. They talked over each other, challenged assumptions, built on ideas with the kind of intellectual energy I'd been craving for years. But they had no structure. No process. No way to translate their innovation into deliverables. Here's what we're going to do, I said finally, moving to the whiteboard. We're taking this proposal and breaking it into 4 phases. Phase 1 launches in 6 weeks and solves one specific problem: campaign analytics automation. That's it. Not creative, not communications, just analytics. That's not the vision, the young man started. The vision is a marathon, I interrupted. This is the first mile. You prove you can execute on analytics, you earn the credibility and resources for phase 2. But right now you need a win. A real, measurable, implementable win. I saw resistance in some faces, but also recognition in others. They'd been spinning their wheels for months. I was offering them traction. I need 3 people on phase 1, I continued. The rest of you continue current client work, but I want weekly innovation sessions where we pressure test the next phases. No idea is off limits, but every idea needs to answer one question. How do we execute this? Purple hair woman, her nameplate read Sarah Kim, raised her hand. What if we disagree with your direction? Then you tell me. Loudly, with data to back it up. I'm not here to be your boss. I'm here to be your translator. You speak innovation. I speak implementation. And together we speak revenue. Questions? Yeah, Sarah said, but she was smiling now. When do we start? Right now. Sarah, you're phase 1 lead. Pick your team. I want preliminary specs by end of day Wednesday. As they filed out, the energy had shifted. Not complete buy-in, but enough curiosity to give me a chance. James Thornton caught me in the hallway after the meeting. He was in his early 40s, with the kind of polished presence that came from years of executive leadership. His handshake was firm, his smile warm but assessing. Victoria told me you're reporting directly to her for now, he said. Unusual arrangement? Unusual circumstances. Indeed. He fell into step beside me. I want you to know that I pushed hard for your hiring. Your portfolio from Davidson was impressive, and your strategic vision aligned perfectly with where we're trying to take digital innovation. I appreciate that. But I also want to be frank. There are people in this company who see you as a liability, who think you're here because of who Marcus is, not who you are. You're going to have to work harder and smarter than anyone else to prove them wrong. I stopped walking, turned to face him. Is that what you think? I think, James said carefully, that you made a difficult choice and you're going to have to live with the consequences. But I also think Victoria doesn't make hiring mistakes. And if she sees something in you worth protecting, then I'm willing to trust her judgment. That's not exactly a vote of confidence. It's the truth. His expression softened slightly. Look, I was in a similar position once. Different circumstances, but same basic problem. People questioning whether I earned my position or leveraged my connections. It took me 2 years to prove myself. You probably don't have 2 years. How long do I have? 6 months. Maybe less if Thornhill escalates their concerns. After he left, I stood in the hallway processing the weight of what he'd said. 6 months to prove I belonged here. 6 months to build something meaningful enough that my connection to Marcus became footnote rather than headline. No pressure. I worked until 8 that night, reviewing team projects and mapping out strategic priorities. The office had emptied except for security and a handful of workaholics who seemed to operate on their own schedule. Through my glass walls, I could see Sarah still at her desk, headphones on, completely absorbed in whatever she was building. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Heard you started at Kincaid. Interesting choice. David Chen, Marcus's direct supervisor at Thornhill, the man who'd mentored him for the past 5 years. The man who'd definitely have opinions about his star protege's ex-fiancé defecting to the competition. I didn't respond. What could I say that wouldn't be used against me later? Another text, this time from Marcus. How was your first day at Kincaid? I stared at that message for a long moment. The pettiness of not responding warred with the civility of basic human decency. Finally, I typed, good, challenging, how's Singapore? His response came quickly, intense. Everything here moves at triple speed. Already behind on sleep. Welcome to your new life, I typed, then deleted it. Instead, you'll adjust. You always do. Emma, I've been thinking about us. Maybe we made a mistake. I turned off my phone before he could finish. Whatever regrets Marcus was having at 2 a.m. Singapore time, I couldn't afford to engage with them. Not now. Not when I was barely holding my own life together. You look like you need a drink. I looked up to find Sarah standing in my doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder. I look that bad? You look like someone who just realized she stepped into a minefield. Sarah came in without invitation, dropping into one of my chairs. Want some unsolicited advice from someone who's been here for 3 years? Please, stop trying to prove yourself. Everyone here is already watching you under a microscope. The harder you try to prove you belong, the more it looks like you're overcompensating. So what do I do? The work? Sarah shrugged. Just do the work. Let the results speak for themselves. Also, ignore the gossip. There's already a betting pool about how long you'll last. Seriously? Welcome to Kincaid. We're brilliant and slightly dysfunctional. The betting pool is up to $3,000. I've got money on you making it past 6 months, so don't make me lose. Despite everything, I laughed. What are the odds? 3 to 1 against. But I like an underdog. Sarah stood, heading for the door. Also, that Phase 1 team you asked me to build? I've got my picks. We'll have specs ready by Wednesday, but I'm warning you now. We're going to push back on your timeline. 6 weeks is aggressive. Good. Push back with data and I'll listen. After she left, I packed up my things and headed out into the October night. The city felt different somehow, like I was seeing it through new eyes. Or maybe I was just finally seeing it through my own eyes instead of filtering everything through Marcus's perspective. My sublet was a 1-bedroom in a high-rise near the river, furnished with the kind of generic elegance that made it feel like an extended-stay hotel. But it was mine. No shared space, no compromise on temperature or decor or what to watch on television. I ordered Thai food and opened my laptop, intending to review more team documentation. Instead, I found myself opening a blank document and starting to write, not work notes, not strategic plans, just thoughts, observations, everything I'd been feeling for the past 4 days but hadn't had time to process. Day 1 at Kincaid survived. Possibly even succeeded. The team is brilliant and challenging and exactly what I needed. Victoria is protecting me while also testing me. James is skeptical but fair. And Marcus is texting regrets from Singapore like that changes anything. The truth is, I miss him. Not the Marcus who chose Singapore over our wedding, but the Marcus I fell in love with 2 years ago. The one who used to ask about my day and mean it. The one who hadn't yet been consumed by ambition, but that Marcus is gone, if he ever really existed. And I'm starting to realize that the Emma who would have followed him to Singapore, who would have postponed the wedding and waited patiently for scraps of his attention, she's gone too. I'm becoming someone new. Someone who makes her own choices and lives with the consequences. Someone who walks into minefields deliberately because the destination is worth the risk. I just hope I know what I'm doing. I closed the laptop and looked out at the city lights, wondering if Marcus was looking at Singapore the same way. Wondering if he felt the same strange mix of loss and liberation. Probably not. He'd gotten what he wanted, the promotion, the prestige, the fast track to the C-suite. I was just the casualty of his ambition, easily rationalized and eventually forgotten. But I was also something he hadn't anticipated. Competition. And I was just getting started. Tuesday brought the first real test. I was reviewing Sarah's preliminary Phase 1 specs when my phone rang. Victoria's assistant. Emma, Victoria needs you in her office immediately. Thornhill's lawyers are here. My heart sank. Here we go. I grabbed my laptop and headed upstairs, my mind racing through possibilities. What could they possibly accuse me of after less than 48 hours? Victoria's office was crowded. James was there, along with our general counsel, Margaret Walsh, and 3 people in expensive suits who could only be Thornhill's legal team. Ms. Chen, the lead attorney said as I entered. I'm Robert Hastings, representing Thornhill Global. We have some questions about your employment history and recent job change. I sat down carefully, acutely aware that every word would be analyzed for hidden meaning. I'm happy to answer any questions. Excellent. Let's start with your relationship with Marcus Reeves. When did you first learn about Thornhill's internal promotion strategies? I'm not sure what you mean. Mr. Reeves was promoted to Senior VP of Global Expansion last Thursday. You accepted a position at his primary competitor that same day. The timing seems coordinated. The timing was coincidental, I said evenly. Kincaid's offer came before Marcus's promotion was finalized. My acceptance had nothing to do with his career moves. But you discussed his promotion before accepting Kincaid's offer? I saw the trap immediately. Admit we discussed it, and they'd claim I used inside information to time my move. Deny it, and they'd question the state of our relationship. Marcus and I discussed many things, I said carefully. But his promotion was his decision, and my career is mine. The two were never connected. Robert leaned forward. Ms. Chen, we have records showing you accessed certain files on Mr. Reeves's personal computer 3 weeks ago. Files containing confidential information about Thornhill's Southeast Asian expansion plans. My blood ran cold. I had used Marcus's laptop once, 3 weeks ago when mine was being repaired. I'd accessed my email and nothing else. That's not accurate, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I used his computer to check my email. That's all. Our forensic analysis shows otherwise. Victoria spoke up for the first time, her voice sharp. Mr. Hastings, unless you're prepared to provide evidence of actual wrongdoing, these accusations are bordering on harassment. Ms. Chen has been employed here for 1 day. She hasn't attended a single meeting discussing competitive strategy. Your forensic analysis is either flawed or intentionally misleading. We're simply trying to protect our interests. By intimidating a former employee's ex-fiancé? Margaret, our counsel, cut in. Because that's how this looks. Your star executive broke off his engagement to pursue an international assignment. His former fiancé accepted a job offer she'd been considering for weeks. And now you're here, making unsubstantiated claims about corporate espionage? The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Robert's expression had hardened, but I could see calculation behind his eyes. They were testing boundaries, seeing how hard they could push. Ms. Chen, he said finally, I want to be clear about something. Thornhill Global takes the protection of its intellectual property very seriously. If we find any evidence that you've shared confidential information with Kincaid, we will pursue every legal remedy available. I understand, I said. And I want to be equally clear. I have no interest in Marcus's work, Thornhill's strategies, or anything else related to your company. I'm here because I believe in Kincaid's vision and my ability to contribute to it. That's all. After they left, I sat in Victoria's office feeling like I'd just survived an interrogation. "That was a warning shot," Victoria said quietly. "They're going to be watching everything you do." "What was that about accessing files on Marcus's computer?" "Probably nothing," Margaret said. "Or possibly something Marcus inadvertently triggered when logging in remotely. Either way, they're using it to establish a narrative. You're the corporate spy, Marcus is the unwitting victim, and we're the company that hired you for your inside knowledge." "So what do I do?" "Exactly what you've been doing," Victoria replied. "The work. Let them watch. Let them investigate. Because when they find nothing, and they will find nothing, it becomes another data point proving you're here on your own merits." I left that meeting feeling simultaneously vindicated and violated. They'd dug into my digital footprint, analyzed my relationship with Marcus, built a case against me before I'd even started my job. And this was just the beginning. Sarah caught up with me in the hallway. "I heard Thornhill's lawyers were here. You okay?" "Define okay." "Fair point." She handed me a folder. "Updated specs. We can hit your 6-week timeline, but it's going to require resources we don't currently have. Specifically, we need 2 more developers and access to Kincaid's proprietary client database." I opened the folder, scanning the technical requirements. It was solid work, ambitious but achievable if we had the support. "Set up a meeting with James for tomorrow," I said. "We'll make the case for resources together." "You sure? He's not exactly your biggest fan right now." "Then I'll have to change his mind." "That's the job, right?" Sarah grinned. I knew I bet on the right person. That evening, I stayed late again, this time deliberately. I wanted people to see me working, wanted the optics of dedication to override the narrative of suspicion. Around 7, James stopped by my office. "Heard you want to talk resources," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "Sarah's team has a solid plan for Phase 1, but we need support to execute it properly." "Show me." For the next hour, we went through the specs together. James asked sharp questions, pushed back on assumptions, forced me to defend every decision. But he also listened, really listened, in a way that reminded me why Victoria had made him COO. "This is good work," he said finally. "Better than good. If your team can deliver on this timeline, it changes the conversation about digital innovation here. So we get the resources? You get half the resources and double the scrutiny. Prove you can execute with constraints, then we'll talk about expansion." He stood to leave, then paused. "Emma, I'm going to be honest with you. I want you to succeed. But I also need to protect this company. If Thornhill finds something, anything that suggests impropriety, it's not just your job on the line. It's Kincaid's reputation." "I understand." "Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're walking a tightrope. One wrong step and you fall. And you'll take a lot of people down with you." After he left, I sat in my office staring at Sarah's specs, feeling the weight of everyone's expectations pressing down on me. 6 months to prove myself. 6 weeks to deliver Phase 1. Every day navigating the minefield of Thornhill's suspicions and Kincaid's protective skepticism. My phone buzzed. Another text from Marcus. "I know my lawyers were at Kincaid today. I didn't authorize that. I'm sorry." I stared at that message for a long time. Was he sorry? Or was he just sorry he looked bad? "Are you, though?" I typed back. "Because from here it looks like Thornhill is trying to destroy my career before it even starts." "And you're letting them." His response came minutes later. "I told them to back off." "I didn't know they were going to come at you that hard, but you knew they were coming." "Emma, what did you expect? You took a job at our primary competitor. There were going to be questions." I turned off my phone without responding. Because that was the problem, wasn't it? Marcus saw this whole situation through the lens of his career, his company, his reputation. Even his apology was about managing optics. He'd never once asked if I was okay. Tomorrow I'd face more questions, more scrutiny, more tests. But tonight, I looked out at the city and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Certainty. I'd made the right choice. Not just about Kincaid, but about everything. About walking away from someone who saw me as a supporting character in his story. About betting on myself instead of betting on us. The road ahead was going to be brutal, but it was my road, chosen by my own hand. 3 months later, I stood in front of Kincaid's board of directors presenting Phase 1 results. The conference room was packed. Victoria, James, Margaret, and 8 board members whose collective net worth could probably buy a small country. Analytics automation launched 6 weeks ago, I said, advancing the slide. Client adoption rate, 92%. Time savings on campaign analysis, 40 hours per month per client. Revenue impact, 15% increase in client retention and 3 new major accounts specifically citing our innovation as the deciding factor. The numbers spoke for themselves. Sarah's team had delivered exactly what we'd promised, on time and under budget. More importantly, they'd done it while I was under constant scrutiny from Thornhill's legal team, which had finally backed off after finding absolutely nothing to substantiate their corporate espionage theories. Phase 2 launches next month, I continued. Creative automation tools that integrate with the analytics platform. We're already in beta testing with 5 clients, and early feedback suggests we're addressing a genuine market need. After the presentation, Victoria pulled me aside. The board wants to accelerate your timeline. They're impressed. That was the plan, I said, allowing myself a small smile. Under-promise, over-deliver. Also, James wants to transition you to direct reporting starting next month. The quarantine period has served its purpose. You've proven yourself. I felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized was tight. 3 months of working under a microscope, of having every decision questioned and every success scrutinized for hidden motives. It was ending. There's something else, Victoria said, her expression shifting. Marcus is back from Singapore, temporarily. He's been asking mutual contacts about reaching out to you. My stomach clenched. Did he say why? Apparently things didn't go as planned in Singapore. The position was restructured, his team was downsized, and he's being reassigned back to Chicago in a lateral move. Not quite the empire-building opportunity he thought it was. I thought about that for a moment. The promotion that had destroyed our relationship had turned out to be smoke and mirrors. Marcus had sacrificed everything for a mirage. If he contacts you, Victoria continued carefully, remember that you don't owe him anything. Not explanation, not forgiveness, not even acknowledgement. I know. But knowing and feeling were different things. That evening, as I was packing up to leave, my phone rang. Marcus's name on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hello? Emma? His voice sounded tired, strained. Thank you for picking up. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. What do you want, Marcus? I'm back in Chicago, temporarily, and I wanted to see you, to talk. About everything. There's nothing to talk about. Please. Just coffee. 1 hour. I owe you an apology, a real one, and I can't do it over the phone. I looked out at the city, at the life I'd built in the 3 months since he'd left. The apartment I'd found and furnished with my own taste. The team I'd built and led to success. The career I'd prioritized without apology. 1 hour, I said finally. Thursday at 3 p.m., the coffee shop on Wells Street. Thank you. Emma, I really am... I hung up before he could finish. Whatever he was, I'd hear it Thursday. If I decided to show up. Thursday arrived gray and cold, the kind of November day that threatened snow. I'd debated canceling a dozen times, but curiosity won out. I wanted to see what version of Marcus would show up, the arrogant executive or the regretful ex-fiancé. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in the back corner with 2 cups of coffee. He looked thinner, I noticed, tired. The confidence that had always surrounded him like armor seemed diminished. You came, he said. Standing as I approached, I said I would. I sat down, accepting the coffee he pushed toward me. You have an hour, Marcus took a breath, gathering himself. Singapore was a disaster. The team I was supposed to lead got cut by 70% before I even arrived. The VP of Global Expansion role turned out to be glorified middle management reporting to 3 different directors. And the promised path to C-suite? Complete fiction. I'm sorry, I said and meant it. Not sorry we'd broken up, but sorry he'd sacrificed so much for a lie. I threw away our relationship for a title and a salary bump. Marcus continued, his voice rough. I threw away you. And I've spent the past 3 months in a hotel room in Singapore wondering how I got it so wrong. You chose your career over us, I said simply. That's how you got it wrong. I know. And I'm sorry. Emma, I'm so sorry. For everything? For dismissing your career? For expecting you to rearrange your life around mine? For asking you to pick up my dry cleaning while I was celebrating destroying our wedding plans? The specificity of that last detail caught me off guard. He remembered. I've been going to therapy, Marcus said, trying to figure out why I sabotaged the best thing in my life. And I think I was scared. Scared of commitment, scared of being vulnerable, scared of wanting something more than success. That's very self-aware, I said carefully. But Marcus, self-awareness doesn't undo the damage. I know. I'm not asking for another chance. I know I don't deserve that. I just needed you to know that I understand what I lost. That you weren't the problem. I was. We sat in silence for a moment, the coffee shop's ambient noise filling the space between us. I heard about your success at Kincaid, Marcus said finally. The analytics platform? People in the industry are talking about it. About you. Are they talking about how I'm stealing trade secrets from my ex-fiancé? I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. Marcus flinched. I'm sorry about the lawyers. I tried to stop them, but by the time I found out what they were planning, they'd already made contact. Thornhill's legal team operates independently, and they saw you as a threat. They were wrong. I know. I told them that. But they wanted to protect the company, and I was too focused on my own situation to push back hard enough. You could have called, I said. After that first meeting, you could have reached out, apologized, done something to make it right. You'd turned off your phone, blocked my number. And honestly, I thought you hated me. I thought any contact would just make things worse. So you did nothing. So I did nothing, he agreed, which was wrong. I should have fought harder for you even if you didn't want me to. I should have protected you from Thornhill's paranoia. I should have been the partner I'd promised to be. I looked at this man I'd almost married, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not the ambitious executive or the thoughtless fiancé, but someone struggling with his own failures and limitations, someone who'd made terrible choices and was trying to own them. I forgive you, I said finally. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Carrying anger takes energy I'd rather spend building my career. Marcus's eyes glistened. Thank you. That's more than I had any right to expect. But Marcus, we're not getting back together. Whatever we had, it's over. You chose Singapore and I chose myself. Those choices led us to different futures. I know, he said quietly. For what it's worth, I'm glad you chose Kincaid. I'm glad you chose yourself. You're thriving there in a way you never did when you were trying to fit into my life. We finished our coffee making small talk about the weather and mutual acquaintances, carefully avoiding anything too personal. When the hour was up, I stood to leave. Emma, Marcus said as I gathered my things, if you ever need anything, a reference, industry connections, someone to vouch for your abilities, please let me know. I can't undo the past, but I can at least try to be useful in your future. I'll keep that in mind, I said, though we both knew I'd never take him up on it. As I walked back to my car, I felt lighter somehow. Closure, I realized. That's what the meeting had given me. Not reconciliation or renewed romance, but the simple acknowledgement that we'd both made choices and now we lived with them. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Phase 2 beta results are incredible. Clients are losing their minds over the creative tools. You need to see this. I smiled, climbing into my car. This was my life now. Excited team members, successful launches, career momentum that belonged entirely to me. Not better than what I'd had with Marcus, but different. Mine. 6 months after the canceled wedding, Kincaid threw a celebration for our digital innovation division's success. The entire company gathered in the main atrium, champagne flowing as Victoria announced that our platforms had contributed to a 30% increase in client acquisition and retention. None of this would have been possible without Emma Chen's leadership, Victoria said, gesturing for me to join her at the front. She came to us during a difficult personal transition and chose to channel that energy into building something extraordinary. Let's hear it for our head of digital innovation. The applause was genuine, warm. I looked out at my team, Sarah grinning proudly, James nodding his approval, 15 brilliant people who'd become colleagues and friends. This was what success looked like. Not perfection or romance or happily ever after, but the messy, complicated, deeply satisfying work of building a life on your own terms. Later, as the party wound down, I stood at the window watching the city lights. Rachel appeared beside me, 2 champagne flutes in hand. "Remember 6 months ago?" she asked. "When you were planning a wedding and picking up dry cleaning? Feels like a different lifetime." It was a different lifetime. Different, Emma. Rachel clinked her glass against mine. "I like this version better." "So do I said, surprised by how much I meant it. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw the news about Kincaid's success. "Congratulations. You deserved this." M.I. looked at Marcus's message for a moment, then deleted it without responding. Some chapters needed to stay closed. "Ready for the next challenge?" Rachel asked. "Because Victoria just posted the opening for Director of Global Digital Strategy. You should apply." I looked at my friend, at my team celebrating across the room, at the city spread out below us full of possibility. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "I'm ready." Because that was the real revenge, not destroying Marcus's career or proving him wrong, but building something so successful that his choices became irrelevant. He'd chosen ambition over us. I'd chosen myself over regret, and in the end, I'd won something better than vindication, freedom. The end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.